Hi. In a recent survey with some of my colleagues, we asked what skills folks would like to be developed on, and the favourite answer was to know yourself more deeply, and through knowing yourself more deeply, how could you deal with difficult conversations, remaining composed through those difficult conversations. And with that in mind, I'm going to do a couple of little approaches to this and try and give you some tips and tricks, some anecdotes and some approaches from my 35 years of experience in the workplace. So if I can take the first part of the kind of approach to this is knowing yourself more deeply. There's a few different techniques that I advise folks that I mentor and coach to adopt these techniques to get to know themselves more deeply. First of all, to know yourself, you have to be somewhat introspective, or at least you have to approach introspection in some way. When was the last time that you thought about your day, or you thought about the people that you work with or interact with at home, and how you react to certain stimuli? That introspection is an essential part of getting to know yourself more deeply. It sounds kind of obvious, but worth thinking about in a more profound manner. And spend some time having that introspective time. Give yourself some time to have those introspections. One of the tools that I have used over the years and have found very effective is the Strength Finders book. I'll show a link to the Strength Finders website here. I would highly recommend conducting this survey that's a kind of self-knowledge thing, similar to Myers-Briggs, but a different kind of approach to Myers-Briggs. It gives you a list of your strengths, right? And it kind of interprets why those strengths emerge as leading indicators of what you're really good at, what energizes you. The important thing about Strength Finders is it's a different premise from the old traditional approach. The old traditional approach to coaching folks was, identify some weaknesses and then focus development on those weaknesses. The Strength Finders advocates a different approach, and that approach is to identify your strengths and really emphasize working on strengthening your strengths, your inherent strengths, the things that energize you and you're already good at, then get better at them. The anecdote that Marcus Buckingham used, and I'll talk about Marcus Buckingham and give a link to his site. In one of the talks that I attended by Marcus Buckingham, he talked about Tiger Woods and the fact that he re-engineered his swing. Those of you who know Tiger Woods know he's a phenomenal golfer, and at the height of his career he re-engineered his swing, and he got some of the best coaches in the world, and eventually what they decided on was to emphasize his strengths instead of trying to cure his weaknesses. So one of the anecdotes was one of Tiger's weaknesses was he would hit into the sand and he couldn't get out of the sand very effectively. So do they concentrate on his problems getting out of the sand, or do they improve the other elements of his game which he's inherently good at and make them so good that he never lands in the sand in the first place? So that's an interesting little anecdote and something to try and advocate for the approach that you focus on your strengths, not your weaknesses. I firmly believe in that, and over the years I've encouraged all of the people that I work with to focus on their strengths and not their weaknesses. Develop in their strengths. Only address weaknesses if they're fatal flaws, something that's going to cause you to get fired or end up in that bottom left box that I talked about in the 9-box grid thing. So you don't want to be characterised as low potential or low performance. And if there's a fatal flaw there, like you lose your temper easily or something like that, then by all means address that fatal flaw. But otherwise, concentrate on strengthening your strengths. We are not doing this for some higher academic purpose. We're getting to know ourselves better with the intent of improving our satisfaction with work, being able to advance up the career ladder or move laterally across different jobs, different careers, trying to find that sweet spot where you're really good, you're effective, but you also really enjoy your work. You hear folks talking about really loving what they do and loving coming to work every day, and that's the sweet spot, right? That's what you're looking for. Another technique that I advise everyone now coming to me for coaching or mentoring folks that are direct reports to me in my position is a Marcus Buckingham tool. I don't know if Marcus originated this, but I attended a lecture by Marcus Buckingham a number of years ago. It changed my career path, and I recommend it to everyone that deals with me now. And it's something that Marcus Buckingham called the love it or loathe it list. So let me try and explain what the love it or loathe it list is. It's a simple sheet of paper with a line down the middle of it, and the title on the left hand column is love it, and the title on the right hand column is loathe it. And you keep track of all your activities during the day for a week, every day for the week. Each activity being, your call, really it's a subjective decision, but every time you switch from one activity to another activity, and at the end of that activity you just quickly write in what the activity was, and if it's in the love it list or loathe it list. And the way you decide on whether something is in the love it or loathe it list is that if at the end of the activity, no matter how short, at the end of the activity, if you feel energized and up at the end of that activity, then it goes in the love it column. If you feel de-energized or deflated at the end of that activity, it goes in the loathe it list. If I can just share a little learning from many years ago when I did it, I had an interesting paradox because the same activity appeared at different times in the week in the love it list and the loathe it list. And that was having one-on-ones and meetings face-to-face with folks, and I couldn't understand why they could be in both the love it and the loathe it list. And what I decided was it depended on the individual, right? And I could love having one-on-ones with high energy, positive folks, and I tended to loathe low energy, operational, tick the box meetings. I didn't enjoy those one-on-ones at all. So little watch out there. Sometimes you might have to revisit what you've done and look a little bit more in detail about whether an activity ended up in the love it or the loathe it list. The whole point of this is at the end of the day, no one else sees it. You only see it, right? And you look at it at the end of the week and you do some analysis and some introspection around why did this appear in the love it list? Why did this appear in the loathe it list? What is this telling me about what I really enjoy and what energizes me in the workplace? And draw some conclusions from that, right? It's an essential part of getting to know yourself. The last piece of advice I'd like to give you about getting to know yourself more deeply is something that an executive coach told me many years ago. This executive coach was outstanding and she really changed the trajectory of my life, both personal and work related. One of the recommendations that she made was develop your own board of directors. And what she meant by this is the board of directors of you. The only qualification that someone would need to have to be a member of your board of directors was that they only have your best interests at heart. That's the only qualification they need to have. They have your best interests at heart. No ulterior motives, no games. They just want what's best for you, right? This tends to be a little bit emotional with people, actually, and certainly I got a little bit kind of teared up when I started thinking about it, because the executive coach that explained it to me said, okay, these people could be living or dead. It doesn't matter. You're going to conceptualize some questions and try and imagine what they would answer to those questions. If they are alive, by all means, replay those conversations in real time with the real people and be a little bit vulnerable with them. The whole point of having the board of directors, she actually encouraged me to visualize them. So draw the board table with 7 or 8 chairs, or 10 or 12, however many you want. It can be as many or as few as you wish. But the criteria is that they only want what's best for you. Right? Now, when you get to know yourself a bit more deeply, you're going through these different activities that I'm talking about, strength finders and such, then the love it or loathe it list and activities like that, you inevitably come up with some questions. Is this really me, or is this really me? Did I really do that, or did I do this? Some of those questions can be quite difficult, and there's certain vulnerability that sometimes we're uncomfortable with talking to workmates, certainly bosses, at different times. I would encourage you to try and get over that fear of being vulnerable, and as you advance through your career, become more and more vulnerable instead of less and less vulnerable. It's a key characteristic of leadership. So let's think about a question, okay, do I really behave in this way? And you want an honest answer, and you want an honest answer because it's in what's the best interests of you, right? So you can conceptualize that with someone that's not around, that you cannot talk to, and imagine what their answer would be, right? Or you can actually go and have a real-time conversation with someone that's still around and available to you, and say to them, you're on my own personal board of directors. I believe that you only want what's best for me, and I'd really like to ask you this searching question. So I don't want BS. I don't want what you think I want to hear. I want to hear what you think is best in my own best interests. And I've actually conducted this experiment with people who do have my best interests at heart, and I've had some hard truths. Actually, it's been some eye-opening conversations I've had, and I highly recommend that you take that step and be a little bit vulnerable, especially with someone on that board of directors where you know that person has your best interests at heart. So make that leap, and that can be a really insightful way of getting to know yourself more deeply. Thank you.